Welcome to Help the Helpers on this summer Monday. And we are so eager to hear from SUSIE Orbach. And she isn't here yet. So we're going to start by just introducing the subject of how we know SUSIE Orbach or know of her writing or her thinking, and sort of get ready for her. I'm sure she'll be here soon. So,
Yeah, right.
how many of you know Susie's work and her reputation? Liz, what do you think of when you think of SUSIE Orbach?
We're
How
back.
do you know her? Orbach, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think that fat is a feminist issue.
Yes, that is a feminist issue. And what does that mean? But I don't want to put you on the spot, but anybody else? any associations with SUSIE?
I have association.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm
Hi.
not part of your group, but I'll say hi. And I came on because I thought SUSIE was going to be here. But that was a founder with Louise Eichenbaum and Carol Bloom of the Women's Therapy Center in London in 1976. And it was really a very groundbreaking institute, Psychoanalytic Institute, where they married feminist psychotherapy with themes of social justice and a real view of psychology through a feminist lens, which was rare because it was basically kind of a male psychology through the years, as everybody kind of knows, a one-person psychology. So it was a more relational psychology. They were, I don't know how many people here are therapists, but they really spoke to the zeitgeist of the times. And in 1981, they opened in New York this institute called the Women's Therapy Center Institute. And I've been happy to be a part of them for many, many, many years since then. First, I went to seminars on Friday nights, which they gave, and had wonderful, wonderful psychoanalysts, psychotherapists speaking, again, through feminist lens. And she really, SUSIE, was a trailblazer in terms of a feminist psychology. She's quite brilliant. And also, The Fat is the Feminist Issue is her seminal work, right? Which helps people to try to love their bodies. That's our mission, is to help people to accept their bodies. We're in a very hard time right now because there's a big anti-feminist movement. And so I was excited to think that SUSIE was coming on here today because I think globally it's just a very, very important time to hear her voice. And hopefully she'll show up. Okay.
Thank you for speaking for her and introducing her in a way.
It was a bare version. It was a thin version. I mean, I'm sure when you hear her, you'll hear eloquence and articulation.
No,
Well,
I'm going to say it was beautiful. It was
I
a
thought
beautiful
so, too.
introduction.
Thank you.
I knew SUSIE too, because I worked with eating disorders back then, and it was a wonderful time. So that was a great introduction. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
And June, what do you associate with SUSIE? What did you learn from her?
Well, I mean, it was a very long time ago for me, but I associate, the working with eating disorders without making it a very terrible thing, and just and I'm not sure, is it her that
June, can I just interrupt because I have
Sure.
breaking news. I contacted Louise Eichenbaum, I said, could you call SUSIE in London, okay? And right now she wrote crazy. She was waiting for her call. So Susie, is Christine still here? Susie's waiting for a call from you. Susie called Louise, and I think Susie wants to be coming on here. So that's why I'm interrupting you, June. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine.
No,
The Zoom link, the Zoom link.
she's got it.
Why doesn't somebody text her the link as well?
Yeah,
Or
Yeah.
WhatsApp her, or
Or all of the above?
I think this is very cosmic that at a time when feminism is sort of scattered.
She is. Hi, Susie.
Hi.
Hi, I don't know what happened. I didn't get I did the Zoom on something else and nobody was there.
Oh my goodness. I don't understand it, but we're so happy you're here. We were just talking about.
I thought I wrote you a long note saying I thought maybe we got the wrong time. Anyway, hello. Sorry.
Hi, Susie. I just introduced you in a strange way. This is Barbara Buloff over here. Hi, Susie. And okay.
Hi, everybody.
We
Good evening.
began by asking what people associate with your work and what they associate with that as a feminist issue. So we had just a few remarks, and now we're very happy to have it from you. Everybody was saying, "Oh, I hope she comes."
Yeah, no, I'm not irresponsible that way. Something went dreadfully wrong.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Technology will do that.
Yes.
So it's not what I associate to my work. I think, I mean, it's just, I don't know what you want me to say about that.
Oh, you don't have to say anything about it.
Good.
We're
good.
going to hear whatever you have to say.
Okay, good.
And so I think we're going to count our little discussion as an intro, and we're very eager to hear from you.
Okay, but I think what we discussed, at least when I was speaking, was that we'd have a conversation rather than I'd have prepared remarks, because it feels very odd to be giving a talk when I'm online because it doesn't feel sufficiently personal. So I know that we had that long discussion, unless I've got something completely wrong here. Then the whole thing has confused me.
Well, maybe you can introduce the discussion and just tell us some of the things that are on your mind, just what's interesting you in this time.
Well, it's very, very hard not to be totally captivated by what's going on in the world political order for me. That comes into my consulting room and it permeates my mind the whole time.
Mhm.
And I guess it's a relief in the consulting room when people aren't talking about what's going on either in the Middle East or in North America or England. That is a tremendous relief, because it feels like one can do some work of substance and one has an impact. And I think what is so shocking for somebody of my generation, and I'm looking around a lot of people from my generation, is that we feel so damn ineffective now, and we have been ineffective for a very long time, and that we're paying the price, I guess, for having felt that we could try to stretch North American and British and European culture in the 70s, 80s, 90s, as very, very far, without having produced a backlash, which is what we produced. And I suppose I'm very pained about our failures and what it means to be encountering not just fundamentalist modes of thought or autocratic or fascist modes of practice in the world, but also how it makes conversation so incredibly problematic and so tense just between ordinary people. Is that, America's really been leading on the politics of hate, and you've successfully seeded that. I don't mean you people, but it's been successfully seeded through social media, and it's really seeped in and changed the meaning of almost every word that we use. Freedom now is freedom to exploit rather than freedom to expand. I think the whole of our language, and it's really important to me as a therapist that language is something that we are so subtle and explicit, and we find words in new ways with everybody we work with. That being therapist is a very bespoke practice. We don't do the same thing with everybody. We do something very, very different with everybody. And yet here we are, where language is being totally valued and turned into real crudities. And so I guess I'm in a lot of anguish and upset about where our world order is and how we survive in it, and what kind of horrendous legacy that is for people.
Yes. And in some way you feel responsible, or like our generation is responsible.
I think we were a little bit too complacent about how I don't think we'd fully entrenched things that are now being bashed up, right? I mean, the fact that diversity hires are now considered to be an affront, it's just so shocking to me, the fact that the categories of that we try to explode have been pushed back, and that there's such compliance going on. I presume there's also awful lot of fear, because a lot of people are not wouldn't be having these positions. But when I read today about, which I did this morning, about MAGA being taking Trump on the Epstein files, I think, so now I feel triumphant because MAGA's doing something. That's a really not a good thing to be feeling, is what I think, because that's playing into the same perverse fundamentalist agendas where there's right and wrong rather than complexity. Of course, the Epstein files should be open, but I'm sure they've been destroyed. Maybe Musk has a copy of them, but maybe, God knows what will happen to Musk as a result. I mean, there's stuff, but I don't want to get excited that MAGA is taking on Trump, because I don't actually think it's a real opening in terms of political discourse. I think it could be a whole other mask that I don't really understand. But I don't think it's a nuanced, interesting form of political engagement, which is what I think we've lost, is that, whoever thought one would kind of mourn for certain kinds of politicians, but I certainly do mourn for them now. People who actually can string a sentence together and actually have a thought and have an argument that is coherent.
Yeah. Maybe you could just say a little more about this complex political dialogue and way of using words that you would want to revive. And maybe then we can talk about that. Our Help the Helpers group has gone on since COVID, and each week we have someone from a different part of the world perspective, and that dialogue and people really taking things in and discussing them is an important part of our mission.
Yeah, I understand. Barbara was trying to talk.
So, Sue, is that okay? Unless you wanted Lynn to.
No. Go ahead.
Well, because I have a reaction to the complacency issue, and that we've dropped the ball. And I think, yes, we're seeing that now to some degree, but I remember not so long ago us fighting very, very, very hard to, for instance, in the LGBT community, to be heard, to be seen, to be accepted and not pathologized. Now, because I'm very old, it may be that time has shrunk. And so I'm thinking it was just yesterday that you and I, Susie, were talking about, why doesn't the WTCI have more, people on the faculty who are, LGBT? We didn't even say LGBT in those days, lesbian or whatever. I just think we started to live our lives. We started to enjoy that we could be part of the world. And I'm talking about now LGBT, but also feminists. And yes, we were reveling in our freedom in a sense. And I agree. I think for instance, what's going on in Gaza is just reprehensible. It's just unbelievable that we are all sitting by while people are being murdered, just as people sat by during the Holocaust while people were being murdered, or Alligator Alley, as we call it here in this country, which is bizarre to begin with. That what are we doing? But I just want to say that, okay? Because I just think that knowing
Well, I think you're
how
making an
you
important
fought-
point, is that I think we thought we had enough of a groundswell.
Yes.
That even haute bourgeois women, if you like, could be gay or could come out. And it was a nothing in a way. It was not a nothing for them individually, but it was a nothing in class terms. It was a nothing in sexual politics terms. There was safety. There was a sense of being able to occupy your bodies and your desires, and that felt very different. And young women and young men, trans folk, were beginning to feel they had rights to occupy public space. I think that's absolutely the case. So I think we felt more comfortable. And yes, we did live our lives, and we did think, and maybe this is something that I don't really understand, we did think that there were generations behind us who were engaged in their struggles. We may not have always agreed with them or the militancy associated with them, but that's always what happens when the next generation does it. But what we didn't understand, and what I didn't understand certainly, was that their forms of political engagement were online. Yeah. Because I think after the Gulf War, we knew that being on the streets, it didn't matter. You had 2 million people here, and it didn't mean anything. So, but it went online, but I don't think that the progressives or the people with heart or the people with, depth learned how to get online and write memes that were compelling.
I agree.
And although Obama did it in his campaign, that's a long time ago. And so we've seen Steve Bannon and his University of the Right operating in Europe and creating a whole world that exists, which is not in the corporeal world, not in the feeling, smelling, touching world that we know, but is the world that an awful lot of people live in. Yes. And so it's maybe complacency is the wrong word, Barbara. Maybe it's much more, we didn't know how to hook into that, or certainly I didn't. And my cohort didn't. And I never felt it was an effective way to make a political argument was to be on X, even though I was on X. It didn't feel like it was substantial. But of course, it is substantial. It's affected my family. I mean, I have a son who became a COVID denier, or a vaccine denier. I mean, it's permeated everywhere, really. And that's not unusual, that people's insecurities and fears were used in very skilled ways by the right, in a sort of Ayn Rand individualist, pretending that exactly. Big Pharma and this one were coming for you, when in fact it was Trump and his cohorts were coming for them.
I just wanted to clarify something when you're ready, Susie.
Go ahead, interrupt. I'm much better to interrupt.
It's better to interrupt? Okay. I just wanted to clarify that when we're talking about us, when you're talking about us and Barbara's talking about us, you're talking about a generation, you're talking about an ethos, you're talking about a history, you're talking about a progressive orientation, and that us is just a part of this group, which is very international, and it may be very different for people from other countries, from China, from Turkey, from India, and there isn't a unified way of thinking that we have. So there may be people who feel a lot of empathy for Israel and feel very worried about that in a different way. There may be people who have very different feelings about LGBTQ. You know, there may be people among us who have orientations that don't even include American politics. So I just want to open that
Well,
up.
thank you for saying that. I mean, and I think that's really important to know about that, and to know with whom the conversation is happening. So, you know, excuse me if I've sort of included in a way that was unhelpful.
No, I didn't mean it that way, but I
No,
just
it's
meant
okay.
that the us is a segment of
Well-
our discussion.
Could I also say this, Helene Brenner? Hi, Susie.
Hi,
So great
Helene.
to meet you. You know, back in, you know, I've been in there's another we us, and I think it's about cities and rural areas as well. Having, you know, I practice in the field of women's psychology, and I in a town that was quite rural when I first got here 30 years ago. And I was shocked at how much I was seeing women lose their voice and how much they were giving themselves away to men, and how much they were, and young women who were really often having a lot of sex because they wanted to be close and they felt that's what men wanted. Or my daughter at Brandeis was saying the women were doing the guys' laundry. I was shocked at Brandeis, and that's not a place that I think of as women losing their voice. But I think that, you know, sometimes whose ever voice is louder gets the stage, and right now we know who's louder. And
Good morning, Helen. Helen, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm wondering, can we start again? Because we're talking to a group of people that are embodied and in the moment. So I'm wondering, can we just take a moment to come back to who we're actually talking from? And that would help me.
I feel, okay, I understand that, but I feel a sense that when Susie's talking about some outrage, that does come from the body. And I feel really important. It's really important that we don't silence outrage.
I have no need to silence anyone, but I'm just blown away.
I don't even know where who's talking.
It's Pauline Dolan. I'm in Ireland. But and good morning, Susie. I was really looking forward to hearing from you. And Barbara, these are new voices. And hello, Len, you really held as well. But I'm wondering, can we start again and identify who the we are? Because and this moment, are a we of a group of whatever participants, 38 participants. And it is about holding space for us in this moment. After that, then we can listen to each other. But it's like to be really gone with the tide, you know. It's not even blown away. Even all of the words are very important. Because, that's my request. Can we come back to who I am? Can I come back to who I am? And then I'm in a better position to see if they can hear me, or I can hear people properly. But when I'm being blown away by a tide of fear, I find it very hard to hold my own. That's what we can do as therapists, or people that are practiced in holding a space for each other, but first of all, each other. Good morning, Susie. You're just across the pond from me. I'm in Ireland. I can't see you on your screen.
You can't see me?
I can now when you talk, but you're a part of the.
you.
Yeah. So can I just see how that landed on you? Was that a shock?
It sounds
Me
great
or
to
Susie?
me. It sounds
Yeah,
great.
absolutely fine to me. I've never understood who you are, so I'm really pleased to know who you are.
Yeah, I think I'm as eager to hear other, 38 participants. So it's not about me. It's kind of maybe starting again and like really owning the space just for this, to create safety.
Pauline, I think that we may not need to start again, because maybe
Yes,
this is the
yes.
conversation.
Yes,
And
thanks,
this
Lynn.
is
Yes.
the edge. Who are we when we
Yeah.
talk about we, and who are we talking to? And that's what we need at this moment, I think.
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Because
thank you. I'm good enough for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we take for granted who we are and who they are, without really, hearing. So I'm very happy to hear from the outrage of the feminist us, and also just how that is for other people.
Yeah.
Mia has her hand up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Elaine was speaking.
Yeah.
I feel like she was run over by an 18-wheeler here, and that erases her I. So let's maybe go to I instead of we, but we're in the middle of the damn conversation.
Yeah, I don't know who is speaking. I just hear a guy's voice. I just can't locate
Hi,
the thing.
Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I think I was speaking also on behalf of women who feel silenced. And I also wanted to join with Susie. I mean, we've welcomed her as a speaker, and she came kind of trying to get on a call. And I just I'm really honored to have you here, Susie. As someone who's worked in women's psychology, wrote a book about women losing their voices. And I just really am so honored to have you here, and really appreciate the work you're doing. And I also feel, who's the we, and who's the I? I know that I work with so many people in fear right now, but do have a voice, but don't know who to talk to, don't know how to be effective. And I think just in meeting together and having people's voice acknowledged, and having just coming together, we already, I know in my body, just seeing all of you, and seeing Susie here, seeing Lynn, hearing you, Paul, even if I can't see you, it just makes me feel like we're all eyes, but we're also in a period of history together that's very intense. And many voices are being silenced, and so we can't speak for everybody. It's true, but I do know that sometimes, it is a shock to know how much people don't feel safe to speak, and that's what I found with the people I was working with, and giving them a place to speak, just to hear their voice, just to know they count, just to know I hear you, I see you, I hear your pain. I hear your pain having a MAGA parent who you knew used to be empathic and give to poor people, and then now is actually silenced to do that. And, that's crazy too. So I think it's just what I'm saying, I guess, is the louder voices are not the voices of everybody. They're just louder. And I as a focuser and as a psychologist, as a woman, to say it's hard not to identify them as the majority, but they aren't necessarily the majority. And it's hard to stay disidentified and to have your voice count. And that's, as a therapist, I feel like that's one way I can be effective, is to hear and have people, even if they're not talking about the things that I'm familiar, even if they're talking about how do I speak to my parent, how do I speak to my child when they have a different point of view, to empower people to speak, or at least speak to me, so they can start to hear themselves. Thank you.
I like the way you started by saying, I'm representing, and maybe that's a way that we can also to say, I'm representing this, this perspective, or something like that. And I'm wondering if there are other people who haven't spoken, who want to just hear your voices. Here, we want to hear everybody's voices.
Mia's hand is up.
Okay. I resonated a lot when Susie mentioned the complexity instead of creating opposites. And what concerns me a lot is female values. Are they in some way incompatible with power? Because if it's only an issue of majority, there are many places where the women are the majority. Nevertheless, the female values are not they are not in the position of power. Also, men that value being empathic, people don't vote for them, so they don't have the power. And this is, for me, something I really wonder, how can we be more effective in putting female values on the agenda of how the world is running? And if, for instance, we look now at the scene in the world, it are everywhere, in all countries. The majority of leaders are old men. And you can't escape from this. Is an issue of power. And so this is my concern. How can we be more effective? And being more effective is not only a question of louder voices, but being effective in giving female values more influence in how the world is going on, and how a community is run, and what we appreciate in developing in people, in how we organize the world. So this is something of a real concern of me, and I feel responsible for taking my place in how can I be effective in bringing in these female values. And also psychotherapy is in fact cultivating many female values. It doesn't matter when a man or a woman is the psychotherapist, but in fact it is creating a ground for new growth, creating a fertile ground for new life, that's for me about female values, and not to make a separation between man and woman, but offering a field where there is a culture of embracing diversity and nourishing life.
So you are saying that the female values are embracing life and diversity.
Yes. And nurturing also diversity. Just as a few values that I wish the world could embrace more.
Am I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like what Paul is writing on the side. Are we running into danger to talk about female values when so many women are MAGA and in leadership in Trump's administration? And I would add to that, because it came to me that I really like what you said to me. I feel like you're saying something very valuable, and at the same time, I would be scared to call it a female value, like empathy is a female value. I think I understand where you're coming from, but it just human values, right? Like we're lost or losing basic human values. It's really about so many. You pointed empathy, and of course, and so that's it. Thank you.
I just want to also, I know Susan's had her hand up, but that might be a change of subject. I don't know, but it felt very important for me at the moment to also speak up for what Calliope said. And when I hear female values, that, you know, I don't want to just accept that as a thing that goes without saying. That's a gigantic theoretical construct and set of feelings that are not in any way universal. And I don't embrace that dichotomy at all. So just sticking my opinion in there in an aggressive male way, although I have an XY chromosome set. Thank you.
That's funny.
I mean XX, sorry. It's early in the morning.
Now, aren't we struggling though to find a way to talk with each other, and you know, maybe because I misunderstood the shape of this to begin with, I may have trodden on toes that I didn't wish to tread on, and we're now trying to find a way of having the conversation, and while gender is really critical in understanding lots of things, it's particularly interesting for me in understanding the whole issue of why young women, whether they're at Brandeis or Cornell, and I know lots about this stuff because I've been horrified about how many young women have been engaged in sexual practices with boys, with men, heterosexual practices, which I think, like choking, which seem to me to be throwbacks to thinking they're looking for acceptance, right? And it's really very troubling that something's very complicated happening in terms of girls and women's sense of what they have to do in the world. So we've got space being taken up and space not being taken up, and space being taken up by women within the Trump administration. And what we do, most of us, is listen to people all day long and try to understand their experience of human subjectivity, their needs, their conflicted aspects of self and their dilemmas. So I'm not sure how to frame this conversation, really. I think that's what I feel lost about, frankly. And I'm sort of tempted to go back to Pauline saying, could we please introduce ourselves so that we know who the hell we're talking to or from? But again, I presumed you all knew each other, so that was something I hadn't understood.
I wonder if one of the things that we can do is to just pause and take in. I love the way you said that, Susie, that we're looking for a frame for our discussion. And I think that that's always the part that is the most important, and the part that can get skipped over is what is our frame. And we're looking for a way of talking to each other. And we're looking for a way to have words and assumptions not taken for granted, like what Mia means by female values is different than being female. And many of the words we're using, we're stretching to connect with each other over a lot of difference. So can anybody say something about the frame for this discussion, what you feel it is or want it to be? Or
I'm certainly eager to hear, and it's a relief to hear feminist perspectives. And I think that's different than what we're struggling with around female or male values or tendencies. And I also would like to hear more about how Susie's life, all of her work, all this time has affected her sense of psychotherapy. I'd like to hear some of that. I'm a political animal, but I also am a therapist. So I'd like to hear also some about therapy today. Thank you.
As I listen, I'm Mary Rose here in Dublin. As I listen, I'm getting a sense that as we sit here together in this particular group, that we are a microcosm of what is happening outside or outside in our world. There is the diversity. There is the different assumptions, the different assumptions that we all think we're united in, but in actual fact we're not. You know, they're different, as I think it was yourself, Lynn, mentioned. You know, we're maybe coming from different ethoses and different histories and different allegiances. And so I have that sense of we are trying to, who is the us? Who is the us? And how do we hold the respect for the us? And kind of have a dialogue from there. And I'd nearly prefer to explore that than maybe going back and each of us just saying who we are or what we're from or who, you know, what our background is, because that then we can start boxing each other back into where we've come from. So it's just something about the diversity and the richness of this beautiful group of people that I'm here with now, who are wanting to explore a way forward to have a dialogue with respect. So I think there's a gift in this diversity.
If I could come in and respond to both you and the previous person.
Thank you, Susan.
As a psychotherapist, we have that skill set, right? We are very, very curious about who's sitting with us, their impact on us, how we reflect on that impact, how we can hear their words, help them expand their words, and help them, will enable them to say what they want to say, which then opens them up to saying other kinds of things if they. So we have the skills, those of us who are therapists or clinicians, we have those skills. That's part of what we're able to do in the consulting room. And maybe that's what we're asking people to be able to do here, except we don't know what the topic is. So I think it's one thing to be really open and containing oneself, to be open, but we need the topic by which we are struggling to do that. So it's back to the, I think we probably hold the frame, but the question is what are we trying to understand here? Is it simply that we have difference, or is it that we have a project in common for an hour and a half?
So there's one person who's had her hand up for a long time, Susan.
Thank you, Cassell.
Well, I feel that it's been wonderful to listen to everybody. What does help me is a floor, and I feel like there is a silent group of people, many people, who did not ask for this extreme excess that is going on. They wanted something different, and I think that they are there, and they're silent, but they're there, and that comforts me. I also love the way Susie was unafraid to talk about her feelings of despair. You know, I have despair, hopelessness, powerlessness. I feel those things, you know, longing to escape. And I feel like other people, the people that are reacting, possibly had those feelings as well. And this is, you know, when we make a change, there's a reaction, and this could have been part of it, or part of how some people felt, and now they have the power and they're stretching way too much beyond what the middle really wants. So I think some of that is going on. And I feel like these incremental moments where we hear ourselves and come back to a sense of groundedness and breath and community, to come back there is really important. And I feel like some of that is been really lost in our society, and we're like the hidden angels that are bringing this back to people. And so like our work is very important here. And then the last thing I'll say is, for the women, the sexual practices, you know, this sense of wanting to fit in and wanting to find their footing, which was always there. And maybe now it's being expressed in these kinds of horrible practices rather than other kinds of horrible practices. We just have to keep doing that work to repair the bonds, repair the sense of groundedness and okayness, so that people can move forward and we can get more of a balance. I'll say one more thing. I'll talk about the thing that's scaring the crap out of me, is that $100 billion that was just allocated. And I feel like we need to skate. If I was to put my own topic to conversation, I would feel like we need to skate where the puck is going to be. There's going to be a lot of money being put forward into a police force that is going to have a lot of power and is not going to be run by any kind of traditional values like some of our other forces. And so we need to start thinking about that now, before we end up with a tide of complete fear and, you know, people being cowed. So I would want to build a structure and a framework now to help people, so that they feel like they can go out on the street or whatever and say, stop this now, when there's only, you know, 5 billion deployed or 10 billion deployed before it gets to 100 billion. So that is my own personal thing, what I'm thinking about. That's enough for now. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Susan. It seems to me that we're talking about a sense of the world crisis and how we all approach that. And we're talking about, in that, we're talking about feminism, we're talking about, you know, where we're coming from, and we're all in common meeting this world that feels so fragilely put together right now. And we're trying to find a way to talk about it, which I think is a very important thing to talk about, how we find a way to talk about the world being in some kind of crisis.
Well, I think I agree with you, Lynn, and I agree with Susan. I think if we think it in psychic terms, I think we're in shock. You know, and we're in fright. And it's very easy to get outraged and take up a cause. That's very, very easy for us to do within the situation. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the underlying thing is we're being asked to do things that we find unconscionable and against the public interest and against humanitarian interests. And that is a very hard thing when most platforms for speaking up against this are being ridiculed and eroded. And that's why these conversations are important. They strengthen us in some way. They make us feel less isolated and less crazy. Which isn't that much, but it's something.
It's a lot.
I think it's a lot, Susie. I came on with a question, you know. It's not that there's any my question was it was Rosie O'Donnell that under an Irish flag was talking to Trump, you know, and with the juggernaut, I was saying it's very easy to get your voice out there, but you might be actually railroaded. So for me, I know that I wasn't going into a mainstream. That's where I want to really come back to myself and not come from fear. So these forums are really good because then we have an identity, or I can identify with a movement that's rational rather than just an individual that's in danger of getting hurt. You know, I want to sort of go with a group identity. But having said that, just the children, what can we do for the children? Even if there was one symbol that we could say we want to stop whatever. And that it's almost like the garble thing is good enough for now. That's as good as I can get. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's very easy to get in the mainstream, but you might just get railroaded, and that's not what I want, yeah, for me or others. So thank you. Yes, it's very valuable.
Thank you, Pauline.
Rashi is raising her hand.
I have something to say. I don't know how absurd it may seem, is that somehow I feel like we are children living in a family with domestic violence. So unpredictability, you know, feeling powerless in some ways, feeling really scared and trying to figure out our own identity and needs and how to protect ourselves, or you know, questioning our basis in some ways. That is because it's you're living in a house of domestic violence. That's how it feels like.
I thought that was great, Shashi. Thank you so much. That really summed up. I also I keep wanting to bring it back to fat, fat as a feminist issue. And I was thinking about a psychologist named Judy Hollis, who writes books about eating disorders, and one of her book titles is Fat and Furious. and she talks about women stuffing anger, not being able to be angry, and instead eating. And I related to that, and there's something there for me about not having a voice and having to stuff it. I don't have a coherent thought about this, but it just seemed somewhat relevant when we're talking so much about how do we say no and express what's going on for us in the face of authority that has guns.
Can I just say something, Gwen? Hi.
Please.
Hi, because I don't know how long this group goes on, because this is my first time coming to do it, and I came because I saw that Susie was going to be on it, and I was very excited by that. I think it's an hour and a half, you said, so that's very soon. But I just want to say, I think context is so very important here. You know, those of us who live in the States, right now, I think Susie's right. It's about shock, but it's also about context of where we came from in terms of our families, in terms of our ancestry, in terms of knowing about brown shirts and stormtroopers. And yes, I think you're right. It's like domestic violence, Shashi. I think it's like, we know that 100 billion, I think Susan talked about that, dollars has just been allocated to bring in people who will beat up people just because they want to and can. And I think, you know, any way you look at that, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. So those of us who say, I don't know what to do, I really don't know what to do, because I was talking with a friend yesterday saying, if I see somebody being accosted on the street, will I step in? I want to. I feel it's right to. How can I walk away? My whole life has been dedicated to justice. How can I walk away if I see a human being being beaten up? You know, but I don't know. I possibly would do that. And there's such a conflict within about who I am, who we are. And I don't know. I just would like to thank you for this forum. I think, because I have to go, but I don't know how long you go on. How long? It's been very.
Till 1:45.
Oh, wow.
And
thank you.
Can I jump in for a second? I just want to say, Barbara, you say you're here, I think maybe for the first time, maybe you're about to leave. Susie, you're here. Some other people have spoken up, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten who it was, who've kind of come through saying, we recognize these kind of dynamics that are happening now. We've been here before. We were on the front lines. We were fighting, and I just have such an appreciation for you being here now with us and for speaking. And if there's anyone who would be available to come back in some way, perhaps in another space, I know for myself, I would love to sit with you, to learn from you,
Yes.
to think with you. I would, yeah, I'm very much speaking for that.
Where are you speaking from, Lucy?
Well, I'm normally living in Italy, and right now I'm in Germany.
Not so good in Germany right now.
And not so good in Italy right now.
No.
Yeah.
And not so good in Turkey right now.
Not so good in Hungary. Let's call it out. Right?
Yeah. That is what I meant, that we are living in a family with domestic violence is all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's generous, Shashi. I think it's much worse than just domestic violence. I think we're going one way and then we're going the other way. We're going this way, we're going that way, we're going this way. You never know where you are.
That's why I see that we feel like a child in a family with domestic violence. We're questioning our safety completely in all different ways. And, then you start to pick on each other for own your survival. And, you like, we're just like looking for base. And it seems precarious. Yeah.
But when Liz talked about her voice being silenced, about fat stuffing it down, we're told right now that if we speak, we can be punished, just like that. Hurt, damaged, put in jail, locked up, silenced. I mean, that's out there. I hear it was just out in the UK last week about if you speak in a pro-Palestinian way. Is that right, Susie?
If you support one of these groups, a particular group, which is not particularly, it's, it wasn't any more militant than anything some of us did in our day. There is no such thing, it's a prescribed group. So it means there's no such thing as you going to trial. You can be arrested and locked up. If a patient, a client comes into a session with a t-shirt on from that group, I would be required to report them.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
So
that's in England.
It's part of the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
Well,
it's a whole new development in civil society. It's uncivil society, really. It's how the notion of any kind of discourse or dialogue or groping towards consensus is to be decimated, frankly.
I just want to point out for 1 second, I'm in New York City. I don't know how many people here know that a person just won the Democratic nomination for mayor of the city of New York, who is a naturalized citizen and a Muslim. And Donald Trump has said that he would like to deport this man and remove his American citizenship.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to say something to what Susie said, because I think it's really so critical about how all of our language is being turned against us. I mean, for instance, just to think of terrorism, we are being terrorized.
Correct.
But everything that counters it is spoken of as terrorism. I mean, it's this kind of mind fuck, if you don't, just for the expression, is so debilitating. And I'm really appreciative of your bringing it up, because I mean, everything you said when you began talking, I'm like, oh, phew, I felt sort of inwardly relieved. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Just feeling that sense of responsibility, of not quite having, I mean, of being oblivious, and working on myself, learning meditation. In the 60s, I was doing political work, yes, and I was doing feminist work, and then I went and did this other wonderful thing while people were plotting to dismantle everything good about anything I valued anyway.
Hi, Suzanne in Costa Rica. I'm a little nervous, but I work with addictions and I facilitate recovery focusing groups. And addiction, it comes from the loss of voice. And this is one of the common themes that we're talking about today, the loss of voice. And, so from my model, the healing from that addictive process, or skipped process, as they might say in biospiritual focusing, is the connecting in a safe environment. Safety is key to finding our voice. And here I'm a little nervous today, so I guess I'm not feeling quite safe, which is odd. But so that seems to be somehow we have to work on the solution individually, and in like this little group that we're having here, which is basically a safe group, even though there's a lot of diversity and a lot of different opinions. Yeah, and continuing with this finding the voice in the groups, it's this, or healing from addiction is this connecting with self, with the felt sense, with feelings, and the connecting with another human being, connecting with the group. I belong, I'm safe, I'm a part of, not apart from, etc. And of course, in the 12-step model, then, nature, God, higher power, something greater. So I just want to bring that in, that the theme seems to be this loss of voice and the terror we're feeling. And we know that when we're in terror, we don't even think, we can't even think. We start fighting, fleeing, freezing, fawning, folding, whatever, so the safety seems to be the key for us to have our voice and to listen to each other and shift out of whatever we're in. Anyhow, thanks for listening.
I just want to say a little something, and maybe it's presumptuous of me, Suzanne, but I'm touched by the shyness that you felt, because I think that is all part of us daring to speak in a group that, or in circumstances where
I'm
we're not
trembling.
Right?
I'm actually trembling.
No, but I mean, I think that's attractive. It isn't something to put oneself down about, because we have caution inside of us for good reason, and we have shyness for good reason, that we're testing without even knowing. We're saying, can I be accepted? And I think that moves me anyway.
Yes. And maybe this meeting is a practice of testing our voices, and can I be accepted, and can I belong here?
And maybe, can I belong enough? Have to belong. I mean, I don't think we're going to get all our needs satisfied here, but perhaps there'll be a little bit that can be acceptable. I won't even say Winnicott's good enough, because I'm not sure about that, but can it provisionally be good enough in that sense to let us have a place?
I'm wondering, Lynn, what would Eugene Gendlin say if he were present with us? He was such a facilitator of listening and dialogue.
That's a wonderful question. Let me see if I can embody Gene Gendlin. I think he would say, and he has said in one of the videos, the group and the society is more than the individual. But you right there in your own individual, unique place, you are also more than the group. And we have to understand both of those things. And I think this is me, not Jean, but I think that we're finding our own voices with each other and practicing what we want to see in the world, of respecting each other and having our own voices, and trying it out and taking risks and shaking and being able to tolerate talking about these terrifying things, and being able to feel each other when we're different, not the same.
I saw Greg on the call somewhere. I don't know if you're there, Greg, but you mentioned of our skills being hijacked in some way. If you're there and want to talk, I just wonder, could you contribute that?
Are you talking about Greg Madison?
I am talking about Susie. Yeah. Yes, yes. I really liked what you said, you know, that our skills or the language have been sort of hijacked. You know, even when they say that Trump is transactional, actually that's not our sense of what a transaction is. It's only unconscious, you know, and there's another step to that. So yeah, no pressure, Greg.
Okay, what I'm actually feeling is slightly different than that.
Okay.
I'm feeling a little bit of confusion because I feel like we're all coming from different places, but not converging kind of in a shared understanding of what we're here for in some way. That's my feeling. But more importantly, I wanted to speak up for something else. I want to say that we aren't helpless. And I want to say that this weird time in history that I certainly never expected to see in my lifetime is also an opportunity. It calls me to be a different version of myself than I have ever been before. And I want to respond to that. And I want to feel the life in that, that I'm not just here to be walked over, that there is something being called forth in me that this unwelcome world, it's a welcome calling forth. So I just want to say, you know, there's something in us that can respond.
Can I ask you to say more, Greg?
Yeah. It sounded to me as though people were scared, which I totally understand. Some people maybe don't have become passive. I know in me, I have felt not wanting to jump on board mass movements, especially in the therapy profession, that I feel are repeating the same polarization we see everywhere. And I think there's no use for any more of that. So I've shied away from that. In a response, sometimes I become more localized. I'm more interested in my own neighborhood, my own garden, you know, my own small community. And there's something healthy in that. But also I'm really doing a lot of reflecting. I'm bringing my awareness to myself and I'm asking myself, how do I want to live this period of time? And what comes in my body, in the middle of my body, is an impulse to somehow meet this situation. And I don't clearly know how to do that yet. I know that the alternatives that I can see, none of them feel very attractive, but that doesn't kill the impulse. The impulse is very alive in me. And part of that impulse for me is to also reflect upon my behavior up until now, because I feel like I have come to terms with taking some responsibility for where the world has come to. I was very complacent. I thought the world would continue to move in a progressive direction. I thought the right wing is never, ever going to come back in the way it has in the past. And for me, living in the UK, it was the Brexit vote that woke me up. And I've said this before, my first response was to think everyone that voted for Brexit was an idiot. But now what I'm finding inside of myself is an interest in actually, like I do with clients, listening to people that come from very different perspectives. That actually excites me. If I meet somebody at a party that has a very different point of view, I want to understand them because I don't. So that's a part of the impulse. It feels very life affirming. It doesn't feel defeated. That's all I can say about it. No, it's not very satisfactory.
Oh, it's interesting and useful.
It's like another point of connection is this impulse toward life that doesn't get killed off for many of us.
Roshi has his hand up.
Roshi.
Paul, being in the US, that wake up that Greg is talking about started in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost, and we woke up to Trump, or spent the night walking around, as I did, in disbelief. Where we are now in the US is a fascist dictatorship is here now. This is not something that's still moving toward us. And the military is being brought into the streets. There's show of forces. This is a classic fascist playbook in every aspect of it, from the use of language, the distortions of language, the control of media, the destruction of the judiciary, and so on. So I really resonated with Greg's talking about the importance of our impulse and not knowing exactly where to put it yet, but also that notion that people right now all over are being pulled off the streets and that they have permission to send them to anywhere, Sudan. I mean, it's like they create almost jokes out of horror to shock us and again beat us into submission. So where to put our energies? I mean, this almost does call for a retaking of arms at some point, or at least that's going to be a consideration at some point, as much as that's distasteful for me as a Buddhist or as a human being. A last resort, but at times we may be in a time of last resort. Thank you.
I think we can't take up arms because we don't know what to do with them. There are not enough of us who are trained to do anything, even if we were to overcome all our scruples.
Well, I think that the impulse that Greg is talking about also is the arms that we can take up. I felt when you were talking, Greg, I felt you were talking for yourself, which I really appreciated. And I felt like there was a kind of lifting, that we aren't powerless, and that life force in us is very powerful. It is the basic arms of expressing what we want.
If I can jump in, I'd just like to say that I feel like this spirit that's being evoked in me is a movement from this more kind of emphasis on the individual that's so much central, it seems to me, in our Western, more capitalist parts of the world, to more from an I to a we, more from an I to an us. And I know there are iterations of that at the moment that are not coming through healthily, but I think responding to you, Greg, that feeling of this possibility to rise to the occasion and to come together and to find out together, also in conversation with people who think differently. In fact, my thoughts are diverging in different directions here. There's so much more I could say, but that's kind of one point. And then to say something perhaps to this, being open to, being curious about people who have very different perspectives. I've certainly heard that the MAGA community is a very important community to all sorts of people, and that actually it does offer a sense of community. And I've heard people who've ended up stepping out of it for one reason or another, who really have had the shock of so actually people who had a different perspective on something, who then lived the shock of really losing the whole community because their partner got long COVID and they were no longer aligned with the anti-vax aspect of that movement or different things. But I guess my point is, I think there's something here about the great need for community, whether it's coming through in a more healthy way or a less healthy way. And maybe we can think more about that together.
Can I say, just a question for Greg and other people? Do you find that these people who voted for either Brexit or the current administration in the US, are they open to a discussion? We're saying we may want to have the discussion, but is there an openness there? Is there any way that I'm just curious, do you find that people they are willing to talk with you? What kind of discussion? What kind of discussion?
I feel like I need to respond to you, Calliope, because I think that in the abstract are people who disagree with me open to really having a conversation. That then we come to the conclusion, no, they're not. But when we're open to having a real discussion with people that disagree, then that makes it a whole different story. But I was thinking how, we're just coming to the point of being able to feel the belonging when we, in the little ways that we disagree.
I think also it isn't, I think it's less monolithic in England in terms of every Brexiteer is impossible. That just isn't the position. It really isn't the position. There were sectional interests. There's a lot of betrayal that people felt. There's a lot of regret so I think it's slightly a different situation than how it feels from the outside of North America looking in terms of the Trumpist agenda. So I think local is very useful, but I think we approach these things quite gingerly. I don't expect us to boldly have conversations with people. I think we have to be protect ourselves at the same time, because I can imagine that in North America, to be called out as somebody who's disturbed by what's happening, as Paul has indicated, and I don't have any difficulty with what Paul said, I think I'm probably right down the same line as him, is also a terrifying situation to be in, right? Because there are guns on your streets. We don't have that here. And so we're not in the same situation. We really aren't. And I really feel for you don't have chilling effect. You've got something much worse than chilling effect going on there.
Calliope, if I could just say very quickly, my response is, whether people want to get into a discussion with me that are from a very different perspective, my conclusion about that is it depends upon my openness. If I'm discussing with them because I am trying to convince them of something else, there's no hope at all there. If I am genuinely curious, then I think a lot of people like to talk more deeply about their own how they came to the conclusions they've come to, or how they've, you know, how they decide certain behavior is correct. It really depends on my openness, I think. And I certainly don't claim to always be open. I can't achieve that. But if the rare occasions when I can achieve it, I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy the connection with these people that are so different from me.
I think I would enjoy it too. At least my limited experience with some people, it's been like really they find it, they get very defensive immediately, and really like the conversation stops, or they stop the conversation at all. They're just so afraid or whatever it is. They just don't want to go there. They don't want to, they don't like someone who's curious. Even if it's genuine, I think, because I tried, but that's my, you know, very limited experience. So just curious.
It's time to stop, and we have a poem that is going to be presented through a video. And before we see that, I just want to thank you so much, Susie. I hope that you come back and have a part 2 of this discussion.
Could I just ask a quick question to Susie? You know, you've been on the BBC, and that's a medium. Would you be afraid to have this discussion on the BBC?
Not at all.
No. Yeah, it's
Not,
so
I mean,
refreshing. Yes.
No, not at all. I mean, what
Yes.
did you? Yeah, I was on last Friday night. You know, I mean,
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't hear it. Yeah,
No.
I was. Yes, yeah, yes. Okay, I'm glad that you're not afraid. Thank you.
No, I'm not afraid on that level.
Yeah.
And Lynn, I just wanted to say something quickly when Lucy spoke about, I never thought of this in this context about the women who've been attracted to MAGA, that they have a community and a sense of community and a sense of having their voice heard. And that really went in deeply.
Yes, me too.
It's a theme that's underlying a lot of what's been said today for women. And I just didn't want to lose that piece. I mean, I went to a doctor, a male doctor, the other day, and I couldn't believe how I gave into his power to define that there's nothing wrong, and just left in tears. I mean, it's like with all the work I've done, sometimes when you're faced with this very early place in you, it just leaps up and takes over. And I just wanted to put that out there. Just.
Thank you, Dorothy. Okay, so we're going to have our poem, and thank you all, everybody, for your voices.
And it is a long poem, so if you can't stay, we understand. But I think it's very powerful. And Susie, thank you for this.
He said, Megatron's the best one. If I was one, it's him. Optimus Prime's all nice and shit, but it's Megatron who really wins. I've listened so many times to this since last week's sodding Transformers hit, and I smile until today. I say, Megatron ain't shit. Last year, my hip bones moved another half an inch back together. He said, Holly, Megatron lives forever. I said, Megatron's not real. If you want to see a real life Transformer, come and have a feel. And I pushed his fingers closer, and then right inside my stomach, to feel the gap my muscles left from something I now know a bit as birth. And I knew that this would hurt, but I did not know the rest. That there's a hole inside my stomach till the day I'm laid to rest. And no, you're right, I said it's not the same. I did not turn into a car. I turned into a factory, a life support and cooker. As my body started morphing, my insides realigned, my digestive system shifted and completely redesigned itself. No help from the Autobots or the Decepticons. What vitamins I'd got moved from my blood into hers now. The direction of my nutrients redirected into hers. How? I don't know. Everyone sees our stomachs grow. They do not see the wrist. Rib cages cranking up to make more space for baby's legs. Diaphragm moves down. My womb fills up with fluid and a brown line on my skin appeared and no one even drew it. A brown line on my skin from between my legs to boobs. The only line a child can see to lead them to the foods. Labour came and went. Something that I won't forget. Baby now in my arms and my system shifted once again. Digestion redirected to 2 breasts that grew one night, bigger than a large ripe pear of cantaloupes. Get me a pump, I screamed, genuinely worried that they might explode. My boobs stay warm to heat the food, my nipples make a hole, and every time the baby drinks, the suction makes my womb shrink back, my hips shrink back, my ribs and diaphragm move back, my hair grow back, my back stretch back, and after 2 more years of doing that, my system shifted back. Nutrients shot back into my own body's blood again. And now I'm almost back to how I was before that seed took life. Complete transformation without one fucking robot fight, but no one makes an action film of this. In fact, all our bodies have to show for it are a few marks on my belly. My hip bones stayed apart a bit and my breasts are pretty saggy. But the saddest thing of all is that I'm told these marks are bad, but they're the only few reminders of this process we all have. As the real lifetime transformers, I'm saying Megatron ain't shit. Compared to female bodies to prepare to grow and feed a kid, and the only thing our body's given for this Optimus of Primes is a pot of fucking stretch mark cream. To try to hide the signs. Thank you. I love you, Emma.
Mm. Wow. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Lynn. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And if you want to go to the link of the poem, it's nice to see her movement, the person speaking it. It's incredible to see her move as she's speaking her words.
Mm.
Thank you.